my name is Priya. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to make a video discussing the topic of astrology, what my current views are of astrology, why for a long period of time I wasn't really into it and I didn't necessarily believe in it, and what actually made me change my mind. Even though I've been someone who's into, all things esoteric and woo-woo for many years now, I never really got that deep into astrology. It really wasn't until this past 2 years that I actually dove deep into it, and it's kind of blown my mind. Just a quick disclaimer, I am no expert in astrology. I am someone who is a dabbler in astrology. There are people who have dedicated their entire lives to this. They've been studying it for decades, and I am still very new. And another disclaimer, I don't use astrology very often in my day-to-day life, and I will explain exactly why I don't by the end of this video. Why I did not believe in astrology at first. Me, like most people, the first astrology that I was exposed to is pop astrology. I heard some people even call it Starbucks astrology. I actually heard one TikToker call it colonizer astrology, and I think that's funny. But it's basically like these mainstream horoscopes that you see in magazines and in newspapers and on social media, where they'll just have these like vague, generalized statements where they say things like, this is the monthly forecast for Aries, this is the monthly forecast for Gemini. And I remember reading them and just thinking, they seem like such an oversimplification. They seem super generalized, like anyone who's reading them could apply them to their life. And I remember just thinking, is someone just making this shit up? The majority of people, especially in the Western world, when they think of astrology, pop astrology is the first thing that comes to mind. Most people only know their sun sign. If they're lucky, they might know their big three, which is their sun, moon, and rising, but that's it. And they think that that is what astrology is entirely. For a long time, I only knew that I was a Capricorn. And I remember as a kid looking up Capricorn and thinking, is this really it? Like, is this really the entirety of my personality? Like, I don't know. I didn't know if I even resonated that much with Capricorns at the time as well, because I thought Capricorns were a bit boring, and I thought I was a bit more whimsical than that. But whatever. When you only know your sun sign, it makes astrology seem super oversimplified and just overall not that accurate. The next thing that kind of turned me off of astrology is I remember doing one of those online birth chart readings. You know those websites where you just put in your date of birth, your time of birth, and your location, and it'll just give you these automated responses. I remember reading through it and noticing so much contradictory information. So there'll be one part of my chart that says, oh, she loves structure, and another part of my chart that says, oh, she hates structure and she loves freedom. And I remember looking at it and being like, okay, which one is it? The issue with these online calculators is they don't really show you on a deeper level how certain aspects relate to one another and work together. They just give you these automated responses, so you end up with a bunch of conflicting information. The next reason why I did not want to get into astrology for a long period of time, and this is probably the biggest reason, is because I did not want to give my power away. I am someone who believes so strongly in personal sovereignty. I believe in free will to create your own destiny. I believe in manifestation. I believe in the power of your mind to influence your life. And I did not want anything external to subconsciously influence my beliefs and actions. I did not want to have an astrology reading that says you're gonna have a bad day today, and then I subconsciously take actions that lead me to having a bad day. And this is the issue with social media and a lot of these astrologers that you see on TikTok and on Instagram, is that a lot of them will use fear-mongering because they know that that gets more views and more engagement. And it's sad because not only are you taking advantage of vulnerable people, it just makes astrology into something that is more limiting rather than something that is empowering. Speaking of fear-mongering and online astrology readings, one time I did an online Vedic astrology reading. Do not do that. Vedic astrology especially, because it's so much more destiny and fate focused. It scared me so bad. These like automated answers, it literally just would say stuff like, you're gonna die broken alone. Okay. If you want to get a Vedic astrology reading, go to a professional. Now, how I actually started to believe in astrology. Astrology is so much more complicated and deeper and interconnected than what pop culture astrology would make you believe. My cousin a couple years ago asking me, Priya, do you really believe in the entirety of the world that there are only 12 personality types? But it's so much more than that. It's so much more than just your sun sign. You have your planets, you have your houses, you have your degrees, you have all the different angles and all these sort of things. Vedic astrology is even more complicated. It's so much deeper than just the 12 signs. And it's one of those things where the deeper you go, the more accurate it is. Every single person on this planet has a completely unique birth chart. There is no two people on the planet with the exact same chart. Like, it is as unique to you as a fingerprint. To really understand this, I do recommend going to a professional astrologer. Go to somebody who's been studying this stuff for a long time, who can take one glance at your chart and know what's up. Someone who will actually go deeper and go beyond the surface level descriptions that you see on Google. I do think there might be some apps and websites that are a little bit more advanced these days that will actually talk about the interconnectedness and how certain aspects and stuff work together. But I'm not sure. The biggest thing that made me start to believe in astrology was, listen, this was a game changer. I got to know myself first. I'm so grateful that I went down this path instead of getting into astrology early on in my journey, because this is what truly did convince me of it. I have spent so many years getting to know myself on a deep level. I am someone who journals every single day. I do tons of shadow work. I truly, over the years, I've gotten to know every single one of my fears, every single one of my desires, every single one of my limiting beliefs, all the patterns that repeat throughout my life. I truly just got to know myself and got to understand myself. And as a result, I became very self-aware. And because of this self-awareness, later on, when I actually started to look into astrology, it didn't teach me anything new. Like, it didn't give me any new information about myself. It didn't give me a definition of who I was. Instead, it was just a confirmation of all that I already knew about myself. Like, it just reaffirmed it to me. It kind of freaked me out. Like, it honestly did scare the fuck out of me, because all the things that I had been journaling about for months and years prior were there. It was all present in the birth chart, down to like family dynamics and all these sort of things. But at the same time, it was really validating, because there are certain things that I struggle with and feel a lot of shame around. And it just told me that it's okay that you're going through this thing, because you're meant to go through it. Like, this is a lesson that you're meant to learn in this lifetime. It's a part of your karma. This is something that you're meant to overcome. And it's okay. You don't have to feel bad about it. The next thing that made me start to believe in astrology was looking back at all major life events and going back and seeing what the astrological placements, transits were during that time. And this was something that was really easy for me to do because of the fact that I journal every day. So I went back and I looked at times in my life that were major turning points, times in my life where I felt intuitively called to make a major life-changing decision, or times where I was struggling or there was big changes. And I looked at what was going on astrologically, and every single time it perfectly lined up. You can do this with your personal life, but you can also do this with major events and huge shifts that have happened in society throughout history. Another thing you can do is look at slow-moving planets, such as Uranus and Pluto. Because of the fact that these planets move so slow, there are entire generations who have the exact same placements. And if you look at these placements and you look at these generations, it kind of lines up. You can see how these entire generations that share these placements have similar attitudes and worldviews and struggles. Look at the difference between boomers and Gen X and millennials and Gen Z. Like, these slow-moving planets correlate so perfectly with real-world shifts. Even someone who is skeptical about astrology on a personal level, you can't really deny how these planetary movements align so perfectly with historical patterns. Like, why do all these people born under certain planetary energies share consistent traits, even though they were born in completely different parts of the world and they were raised completely differently. Another thing I want to mention that helped me believe in astrology even more is that a lot of the most successful, influential, wealthy people throughout history were into astrology. They just kept it secret, or at least into esotericism in general. Now, this topic deserves an entire video of itself, and maybe I'll film it one day. But here's the thing, there's like this collective belief that we have that anyone who is successful, anyone who is wealthy, who is influential, who is an elite, you can say, that these are people who think purely out of logic, purely out of reason. They're science, you know? They think that anything astrology related, anything esoteric is woo-woo and irrational and possibly primitive, but I'm telling you, for a fact, I know this for a fact, that this is a lie. And, you know, maybe we were told this lie so they can stay in power and we don't find our own power. But I'm not talking about that today. That's a video for another day. I'm not getting into it. You might have heard the quote, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And this was attributed to JP Morgan. And I know there's going to be people saying, oh, that's not a real quote. There's no proof that he actually said that. But like, he had a personal astrologer. Who was advising him on financial decisions. And if you look at his library in New York, it is literally covered in astrological symbolism. It was very common for people like him, people in his circle, to be into astrology. And, you know, I wouldn't doubt that the president today has an astrologer. They probably do. If you ask any sort of professional astrologer, like any highly critically acclaimed one, who their clientele list is, it would shock you. Now, what are my current views on astrology? I see astrology as a tool, but not a rule. It is a guide, but not a rigid script. You still have control. You still have free will over your life. It can be used as a shortcut to get you to where you want to go easier by learning to work with energy instead of against it. At the end of the day, personal will and your intuition and your connection to the divine is what matters the most. The way that they explained it in the book Autobiography of a Yogi was honestly so genius. And you know what? I'm gonna go get that book because you have to hear this. Okay, I am back with my beat up copy of Autobiography of a Yogi. This book, by the way, this is my Bible. This book, I highly recommend everyone read this book. It's just bars after bars. There's just so much invaluable wisdom in this. And let me find the chapter. Here's what they said about astrology. A child is born on that day and at that hour when the celestial rays are in mathematical harmony with his individual karma. His horoscope is a challenging portrait, revealing his unalterable past and his probable future results. But the natal chart can be righteously interpreted only by men of intuitive wisdom. These are few. The message boldly blazoned across the heavens at the moment of birth is not meant to emphasize fate, the result of past good and evil, but to arouse man's will to escape from his universal thraldom. What he has done, he can undo. None other than himself was the investigator of the causes of whatever effects are now prevalent in his life. He can overcome any limitation because he created it by his own actions in the first place, and because he possesses spiritual resources that are not subject to planetary pressure. So your birth chart, it is your karma. It's a result of your past lives and whatever. And, you know, but it doesn't dictate your destiny. You're not doomed to your birth chart. You can overcome it. You can overcome any limitation because, you know, you created the limitations in the first place. Superstitious awe of astrology makes one an automation, slavishly dependent on mechanical guidance. The wise man defeats his planets, which is to say, his past, by transferring his allegiance from the creation to the creator. The more he realizes his unity with spirit, the less he can be dominated by matter. The soul is ever free. It is deathless because birthless. It cannot be regimented by stars. Man is a soul and has a body. When he properly places his sense of identity, he leaves behind all compulsive patterns. So long as he remains confused in his ordinary state of spiritual amnesia, he will know the subtle fetters of environmental law. So what they're saying is the higher your consciousness, the more spiritually aware you are, you can transcend all astrological influences. You can transcend these compulsive patterns that play out in your life. The less the external has power over you, the more you go within and recognize the divinity within you. God is harmony. The devotee who attunes himself will never perform any action amiss. His activities will be correctly and naturally timed to accord with astrological law. After deep prayer and meditation, he is in touch with his divine consciousness. There is no greater power than inward protection. So the more in tune you are with yourself, the less you even really need to know necessarily what is going on astrologically, because your actions will naturally align to it. You'll feel intuitively called to make this certain choice, make this certain decision, go down this path at a certain time, and it will be naturally aligned with the astrological placements. Like I said, when I told you I was looking back at old journal entries and looking back at major turning points in my life, times where I felt intuitively called to make a huge life-changing decision, and I looked at it and realized that those decisions were taken at a time perfectly aligned to the astrological events going on. And it's not like I knew that. Like, I didn't look it up beforehand and then make the decision. I just listened to my inner guidance system. I just listened to my intuition, and it just happened to be perfectly aligned with the stars. It is only when a traveler has reached his goal that he is justified in discarding his maps. During the journey, he takes advantage of any convenient shortcut. There are certain mechanical features in the law of karma that can be skillfully adjusted by the fingers of wisdom. Okay, so what they're basically saying is, it can be used as a shortcut. It can be used as a shortcut to get you to where you want to be faster, because you're working with the planetary energies instead of against it. For example, if the current astrology placement supports slowing down, doing inner work, you should use that for your advantage. You should use that time for reflection, for healing, and it will yield better results than trying to force yourself to take action during that time. Now, if the astrology placements support taking action, you should use that for your advantage and take bold steps during that time, and you'll notice it'll get you a lot further faster. Like, if you do action during a time that supports action, you'll be able to get more action done. If you do healing work during a time that supports healing, you'll get a lot more healing work done, instead of trying to force yourself to do healing work during an action phase, or force yourself to take action during a healing phase. So overall, the way that I view astrology is, I don't see it as just vague personality traits. I truly do see it as a blueprint of your karma. It shows you the patterns and the lessons that are playing out in your life. It shows you the struggles and the, challenges that you might have to overcome and learn from, the lessons that you're meant to have, but it also shows you the gifts that you have, and you can use those gifts in this lifetime. You can utilize them to your advantage. Overall, it is just a roadmap to help you lead yourself to your highest version. It's not meant to dictate your destiny. You're not doomed to your chart. You can overcome it. It's not meant to label you. It's meant to help guide you towards your evolution, towards self-mastery. It's like we've been given a cheat code, but it's not meant to label you. It's not meant to define you. It's meant to help you navigate through challenges and align to your soul's path, align to your highest self. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll speak to you next week. Bye!